Welcome to the Squint Podcast. Today we are happy to have Oksana Hansen share her knowledge in the field of quantum biology. Oksana is the founder and CEO of Quantum Lens Wellness, and she is also a certified Quantum Applied Biology Practitioner. We're so thankful for her time in sharing what she's learned with us. Let's take a squint. So we are thrilled to have Oksana here. You just heard her amazing bio. She loves all things quantum, and so do we. So welcome, Oksana. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's that time of year when the days are starting to get shorter and daylight savings is coming, and we're going to set our clocks back, and we're all going to look at each other when it's 4:45 and say it's dark. Oh my gosh, what's happened? And I think you're going to tell me another story, which is that this is a great time to heal. It's not a time to be sad or overwhelmed, but it's actually a wonderful time for our bodies. How do we connect during this time of year when the days do get shorter?
There are, okay, so let's start with this. Winter is the most healing time of year. Our bodies are meant to slow down. And so a lot of people think the sun's going away and the days are getting shorter and the schedules are going to change, and all of that is true. And I'm sure we'll dive into all the different things that we can do in the winter months. But it's a time where melatonin can get really high, meaning the days are shorter, and that means that we can get more rest. And when we get more rest, that is actually enabling our body to run the different clearing out programs, the programs that clear out cells that are dead or no longer working, as well as fixing cells that are no longer working properly. And because we're able to get longer sleep, because the nights are longer, the days are darker, that time of year is just really, really healing for our body if we do all the right things.
And what are some of the right things? Kind of give me your top three, let's say top five. What are your top five go-to fall circadian resets?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. And I actually have, it's actually 5 things that you can do in the winter guide on my
Great,
website. So if you
great.
go to my website, Quantum Lens Wellness, you can download my winter healing guide. It's your 5 steps. But it is get morning light, block artificial light, sleep, and we can talk about each of these, fasting, and then cold exposure.
Mhm. Okay, and then cold exposure. Let's talk about that. So I'm kind of the belief where it's not so much, does it have to be 53 or 55 or 48 or 57? But it's really just getting your body cold and really, more importantly, just acclimating to the climate that you're in. So if it's fall and it's getting cooler, you should be getting cooler. Is this correct?
Correct. So as it gets cold outside, our bodies, they need to feel that cold. And again, like you said, it depends on the climate that you're in. So, of course, somebody, in the northern hemisphere, their environment is going to be very different than the southern hemisphere. So you just adjust to where you're at. But the studies really are 60 degrees and below at 11 minutes a week. So I think you get some of these biohackers that are going really, really cold, like they're trying to get their water in the 30s. Um, I don't love my water that cold.
Mhm.
Then you get like, especially like elderly people, they might not be able to handle that type of cold exposure either. And so my recommendation for people like that would be like, just get in a really hot bathtub and just let that water naturally cool down. So to me, the way that I define cold is anything below your body temperature. So you don't have to be a hero. It doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to be painful. So just feel around to see what's comfortable. And one really great way to get started with cold exposure, if you're not used to it, is actually doing a face cold plunge. Have you ever tried that,
I
Shannon?
do those in the morning, yes.
Yeah. And so you can
Which
just,
they aren't that fun either at the
no, they're
beginning.
not.
But then once you get, it's that dive reflex, right? I mean, that's the
Yes.
point to activate our intuitive, our innate ancient pathway, this our dive reflex. We're intended to go into water that way.
Yes. And so if that's a really easy way, really affordable way to get started with cold exposure. But again, it could be as easy as going out in shorts and a t-shirt when it's cooler outside. That's also cold exposure. So the studies are talking about cold exposure when you're talking about submerging yourself in water, but then there's people that can just take a hot shower and then at the end of the shower when you're done washing your hair and everything else, just turn it to cold for 30 seconds. That's how I got started. That's
Mm.
how I got my husband started. Now we own two cold plunges and
Right.
are fanatics about doing deliberate cold exposure. But I think the conversation is more around we've gotten used to this 72 degrees year round environment, and our body isn't adapting to the environment outside. And so we're living this indoor lifestyle when we used to live outside. And so the closer that we can get to matching the temperature that it is outside, I think that's how ancestrally and naturally we're supposed to live. And yes, absolutely. I have a fireplace. My house is heated and all those things. But I am making it a part of my intention to get cold as often as my body feels like it. I think too, we have to honor, as women, we have to honor our cycles. But having more cold exposure than rather just staying at one temperature year round.
Right. And what's interesting is, I always look at, what nature gives us and then what we create, the man-made things. And as smart as we are, sometimes we're dumb enough to create things that aren't healthy for our bodies. And one of those is just literally heat. And we create these unnatural environments, like, I mean, in the middle of winter, if you're living in Boston and you're setting your thermostat to, 77 because you want to be cozy and comfy, that may not be your best idea. It may be your best idea to actually, be more connected to nature and kind of to feel the temperature that's actually outside and to eat what might be growing in your season, in your current season, which isn't, blueberries at Whole Foods for $10 a basket or whatever. Right?
Yeah, we always say, like, in the quantum world, we're like, yeah, don't be eating pineapples and bananas if you're somewhere where those things aren't naturally growing outside. And all those things, they affect our circadian rhythm. They're confusing our body. It's like, wait, it's cold outside. We're not supposed to be eating the fruits that get the most sun.
Right.
It's a mismatch.
Right. And it seems pretty basic, but until you hear it, it kind of then you say, oh, aha, because it makes perfect sense. Like, why wouldn't I eat a pineapple? It's a great source of bromelain, which is a good and anti-inflammatory. But if your body's not ready to receive it, and if the light in your eye and your skin is not receiving pineapple light, then it doesn't know what to do with the pineapple.
Yeah, and I think with all these things, there are people that kind of take things to the extreme. Is it the best to get regenerative local beef, that's grass-fed and all these things that matches your environment? Yes. But if you can't find that, I think like having a something like white oak pastures where the meat is raised right and processed right and not too far, maybe it's a few states away. I would trust that more than I would knowing that they're completely grass fed and being raised regeneratively. Like, for instance, I can't find someone that doesn't feed their cows grain. Like, they all grain finish, right? So
Mm.
I'm kind of in the camp of do as good as I can, and it doesn't have to be like a 100% match because I think we can get a little bit obsessive. Like we
Yes.
can get obsessive about cold exposure. We can get obsessive about fasting. Um, so I think just do as well as you can, but within where it's still like healthy for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So question about fasting. So what time of year do you fast? Do you do it a certain time of year? How many times of year? How long? Tell us a little bit about your fasting ideas.
Yeah. So I definitely do not recommend skipping breakfast.
Mhm.
So when you wake up in the morning, your body is looking for nutrients. And if it doesn't get those nutrients, it goes in kind of like a stress, like a hermetic stress. Fasting is a stressor on your body, right? But it can be done safely during the winter months because food would be more scarce ancestrally. So if you wake up and you have a meal, if you wanted to, you could fast safely throughout the day without throwing off like your hormones and all the other things. So that's kind of like an extreme case, like if you wanted to fast. I like to get about 2 to 3 meals in a day with the last meal between 3 and 4. So I like to have my last meal before it's dark outside and give my body plenty of time to process that food, which is about 4 hours realistically, before you go to bed. So that way your body's not processing food, so you can get all those cool reparative programs running.
Right. Okay. And then is there a certain time? I mean, I've learned that you wouldn't fast in the summer because that's a natural time where carbohydrates are readily available. I have fruits and vegetables in the summer. That's when they grow. So fasting is more, this fall and winter moment.
It is because if you think about it, in spring and summer, everything is super abundant. And in fall, that's when plants start to die off and winter. So you're going to have some of the things that do grow in those seasons, like the squash and, all of those kind of hardy vegetables and things like that. And so you kind of want to eat with what's kind of locally available at your farmer's market, because those are going to be the things that are going to be matching the
Mhm.
season of where you're in.
Okay. What else? And now how does at Squint we talk a lot about, gut health, and our gut health is related to our brain health, of course, but they're both circadian organs. So how can we improve our gut health over the fall? Because that's the time when, I like to pig out at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and there's all sorts of things going on. What are some circadian tips for moving into the holidays?
Okay, so I'm a little bit abnormal when it comes to this because I love holidays, but I don't subscribe to the normal holidays. So
Right, right. I get it.
when when I do Thanksgiving, I do whatever looks good. So I go to the farmer's market and I'll pick out, fresh meats and vegetables and just kind of cook out of inspiration. And I think sometimes we get boggled down in the we have to have this on this holiday or people have these traditions. And I'm kind of like, I want to break those traditions. Like I want to do it in a healthy way. And I do have children, so for me, we do end up doing some sort of dessert, but then we make it ourselves. So it's kind of part of the process. Like, what dessert are we going to make this year? What ingredients can we use? We make sure we use all whole natural ingredients and make it in a healthy way, not just something that's store-bought. And I know that's not necessarily realistic for everyone, but again, like I practice like the 90% rule. We eat at home and cook our own meals 90% of the time. I really don't worry about the 5 to 10%. And I just call that balance.
Mhm. Okay. So sleep. What are some good sleep tips moving into fall, and how is the sun changing in the sky, and why is fall such a good time for healing?
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to talk about is your sleep environment. And I think it's fairly well known now that the colder your environment during sleeping, the better, deeper rest you're going to get. But there's a couple tips that I have. One thing that I always recommend, and I'm not a huge proponent of supplements, but magnesium is one of those that I do recommend. I find that almost all of us are magnesium deficient nowadays. So, magnesium, I call it my crazy dreams supplement because every time I have it, I have what I call magnesium dreams.
Mhm.
And so, I like magnesium because it gets you into like a really restful, peaceful space. Like it helps you to fall asleep. If you're stressed, it kind of gets you, your stress level down. So I love magnesium before bed. You want to make sure that your sleep space is super dark and more dark than you think. If you lay down, you open your eyes and you can see your hand, it's still too light. So we want to make sure we eliminate all the light in our bedroom. And if you have anything like a fire extinguisher, you want to make sure you take some black tape and put it over the light. You want to make sure you don't have any alarm clocks. You want to make sure that any kind of lights on any kind of devices, and even now, like, have you been to hotel rooms that have like outlets that have the little lights on them? So
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you cover up any and all light that you have, use blackout shades, use a face mask, whatever you can to get your environment as dark as possible. It might seem to you like if you sleep through the night and rarely ever wake up with no, you know, don't wake up during the night being interrupted, your body might still, if it's getting flashes of light, it might still be getting disturbed, even if it doesn't necessarily wake you up. So you want to get your sleep environment as dark as possible so that way your body can get into those repair program modes. And that happens, by the way, um, about from 10 to 2 a.m. So you want to make sure that you're going to sleep at a proper time. And the way that we do that is we want to make sure we're blocking artificial light at night.
And you mentioned travel.
Mhm.
When I travel, I actually bring some black electrical tape with me. So what are some of the things that you see while you travel in a hotel room? What are kind of the top three things to block? If I was going to use my tape and cover up something, what are those things? Clock
Yep.
radios or
Yeah, so I'll unplug any okay. So I just got back from a trip from Sedona, so let me tell you what I did.
okay.
I actually have a whole circadian kit, and I just got one of those clear bags at like Walgreens or something, and I stuffed all my circadian stuff in it. So I have multiple sizes of light bulbs. I have black tape. I also travel with one of those little small flexible red lights. So I like to have that like in the bathroom or something. I
Mhm.
actually have motion censored red lights that I'll plug in the bathroom and hallways in hotel rooms and things like that. So that way they're not on, but as you pass it, it'll turn the light on.
Mhm.
Let's see what else. I have a sleep mask in there. I have a Faraday cage, like a bag for my cell phone. So when I'm in a hotel room by myself, I don't necessarily feel safe like turning my phone completely off, but
Mhm.
I'll just stick it in the Faraday cage and that sits right next to the bed. But it isn't kind of blasting EMFs at me all night. Yeah, just unplug anything that you're not using electrical wise too.
And so on the flip side, we're talking about how to kind of mitigate artificial light at night. What are your top tips for the morning?
Okay, well, blue blockers.
Hmm.
So right now, you and I are both wearing yellow, and
Hmm.
yellow will basically block anything that is above the full spectrum of the sun. So the brightest that the sun is outside, if any of your devices are kind of glaring more than that, then that's what these do. But what I recommend is when you go to bed at night, when the sun goes down, I put on orange blocking, and that blocks all blue light, and that kind of kicks the signal for your melatonin to go up that it's time for you to get sleepy and go to bed. So when I go to bed at night, those just go off and they go right on my nightstand. So when I wake up, I put those right on. Now, I I call myself a low light person. There's people that are like highlight people. I'm like a low light person because
Hmm.
I don't like those bright lights just naturally. But I have these red light bulbs in strategically placed throughout my house. So, like in my living room, which is right next to my kitchen, I have two lamps that have just red light bulbs in those. Those are what I turn on in the morning. Those are what the only things that are on right before I go to bed at night. So I also have incandescent light bulbs throughout the house and different lamps in different areas that we use at night or early in the morning. And so that is the light that I prefer to have on before we go outside to see sunrise.
Okay. And so, okay, so you're mitigating blue light within your home first thing in the morning because obviously you don't want to have that blast of high intensity blue light that you would see in the middle of the day when you first wake up, because that's a circadian killer already, first thing in the morning.
Well, it signals to your body to raise your cortisol. So
Right.
think about it like if we were sleeping in a cave and you walked outside and all of a sudden it was solar noon and you had just woken up, your body would get stressed. It would say, "Oh my goodness, I missed the entire morning and everything that I'm supposed to do in the
Right.
morning." And so that's what happens when we turn on those lights is all of a sudden our cortisol, which naturally rises and it starts in the morning when we see sunrise and goes up slowly, will get just spiked and it creates this unnatural curve, right?
Right. Right. So we're basically forcing ourselves to midday by waking up and looking at our phones. We're actually saying, oh, it's already middle of the day. We've lost our morning. We've lost that ability to kind of enjoy that natural crescendo to the blue of midday.
Well, and also, right when you wake up, you're in this brain wave of you're really connected to source, your intuition, creativity. There's all these things that happen when you wake up. And the moment you grab your phone, all of a sudden that just puts you in a different brainwave. And so I am one of those people I'm like, will not touch my phone until after sunrise, until I kind of do my morning practices. Like I love to journal in the morning. I will meditate. There's a couple different things that I'll kind of alternate depending on the day, but I take that time to myself to really listen to my own guidance and intuition and kind of plan my day without, if I picked up my phone, there might be a distraction or an email, and it might kind of throw me off course for the day. And that might create more stress than it normally would. And at first, I thought not picking up my phone would be more stressful. And now I'm like, I can't look at my phone first thing when I wake up.
Right. It does. It feels gross. It just feels really unnatural. And by the same token, just putting it away earlier in the evening and obviously putting your phone away early to avoid the circadian disruption of that intense midday blue light that you're really not supposed to be seeing at that time of day because it's sunset. And that is the last of the blue we're supposed to see.
Yeah. And there's this beautiful program called ZAP. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but
I have. Tell me about it.
okay. I want to say it's like $20 for lifetime. Like you pay one time and they run you through like you download it's not an app, but you have to like download it and follow the directions. But I'm telling you, it's the best ever. It creates this little button on your screen and it has on there it will turn off your Bluetooth, turn off your Wi-Fi, it'll turn your screen to red, and it also turns the flicker into half.
Oh, that's nice.
And it has like a full zap button and a full unzap button. So,
It's an app.
yes.
Okay.
And I'm not affiliated with them.
Yeah.
I think it's called Zap. I don't know
I've
who
heard
else.
of it.
Yeah. But maybe I can send you a link to it if you want to put it in the show notes. But it's the most amazing app because you don't even have to think about it. It's like as soon as it's dark outside, you just like put the flicker down, put the red on. And so you don't have to, if you have to be on your phone, that red, having your phone on red is a lot healthier way to do it because people are like, here's what I hear all the time. They're like, but I'm wearing my blue blockers. Okay, well, if you have your phone and it's up really high and your thyroid is right here, right at the base of your neck, and the thyroid is actually very close to your to the skin, you're exposing all that blue light to your thyroid and you might not even know it.
Right. And in fact, at night, I mean, I'm kind of I usually, if I'm in front of a screen or I know I'm going to be in front of
You're
lights,
covering.
I do try to cover it. And especially when I fly, for travel, there's just so much. I mean, you're just bombarded by artificial light and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and, 300 people flying through the sky with their phones. So, I mean, not that we can combat that, but at least we can try. We can try to mitigate the small things.
Well, and now they're putting those, what are those Elon Musk satellites? And you're in a metal container flying through the sky several miles in the air with a satellite internet
Yeah.
blasting you. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to, make sure we're mitigating the risks of all that
It
radiation, right?
is. Well, I think, I think I'm, at least personally for me, I am being a lot more deliberate about how often I travel because it's not just, oh, I'll go there, I'll go there. It kind of has to be really a worthwhile trip because there are health risks that you're taking, by traveling, just getting on an airplane or even getting in a car. I mean, obviously, I live in Southern California and it's 5G city, and we're getting blasted all the time. So it's just kind of figuring out how to kind of balance all these frequencies and figure out how you can be the most healthy. Which kind of brings me to grounding too, because grounding is such an important part of the quantum story too.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many studies done on just earthing or grounding, however you want to put it.
Hmm.
But it really is putting your bare feet or hands onto the ground or a tree, something with roots, because I always say, your body needs to know where it's at in space and time. And so, how do you tell it that? You put your feet onto the ground so your body can know exactly where it's at, what season it is. Is it cold? Is it hot? Where are you? What's the magnetism where you're located in this universe, right? And it's really important to do, especially when you're traveling. The first thing you want to do is find a place to put your feet into the ground to give your body that new signaling, like, hey, we've just traveled here and this is where we're at right now. And there's a lot of people who make like grounding sheets, and you can put like a copper rod into the ground and just hang on to that. So all the things that are conducive to like grounding surfaces are rock, sand, water, grass, even concrete, like if it's not painted, so raw concrete, um, things and rocks, things that are natural. Things like asphalt would not be conducive to grounding because it has chemicals in it, so it's not letting the electrons flow through.
Hmm. But
But
cement, I mean, on a sidewalk, you can ground. I was kind of amazed to learn that. I mean, obviously nature is ideal, but in a pinch,
yeah,
that's all you got.
in
But
my front yard, we have this lawn, and sometimes I hate when it's like muddy, it's really rainy outside. So I bought this beautiful rock, and we just put it in this one spot in the yard, and that's my grounding rock. Like when it's not nice outside, and it's kind of muddy and stuff, like I stand in my rock, and that's my grounding rock. And I'm like, that's kind of like my time to do my morning prayer as I'm like watching the sunrise. I'm standing barefoot on this rock, and I'm getting my cold exposure.
right. No, it's great. And I think people are kind of learning all these new quantum ideas. And it's really nice if you can kind of have a daily rhythm with it. So it's not like something completely new. You're like, okay, this is my spot. This is where I start my morning. This is where I ground. This is where I, you know, set my intention for the day and all the positive things that we want to do that kind of need to be part of our, kind of perfect quantum day, if you will.
Well, and let me tell you a quick story. And my husband, when I started all this quantum stuff, I was diagnosed with melanoma. They told me to be scared of the sun, to lather up, sunblock, to, cover my whole body. Basically thought I'd never see the sun again. And then I came across quantum biology, and it was the first thing that was like a heartfelt, like, oh, this is what's right. This actually makes sense scientifically. That it was really my lack of sun and the being really blue light toxic that led to the melanoma. And I think that this is really useful because I think, especially if you don't live alone, if you have a family, if you have children, if you have a husband or a spouse, um, when I started getting up with the sunrise, my family thought I was cuckoo. I would get up and I would quietly not say anything. And I would go outside with my cup of water and I would sit there, and I started this little practice that I do in the mornings. I would say my morning prayers and I would ground. And I never forced anybody to come with me. I would educate if they asked, why are you doing that? I would say, this is what happens during sunrise. It kicks off all your hormones and your thyroid function. And, it takes your tryptophan, which is your groggy genes, like hormones, and it turns it into serotonin, which makes you happy. Like, who wouldn't want that in the morning, especially as we're talking about going into winter months, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't ever force anyone. And so I would say, it feels like you might need a buddy to do it with you, but just do it by yourself. Because then what happened was after a while, my kids were like, "Oh, mom's on the front porch. I'm going to go on the front porch." So then it became like me and the kids. And then Eric, my husband, he'd be on the couch on his phone. And I remember he said it was several weeks later, he finally came out to sit on the front porch with us. And I said to him, "Oh, you decided to join us today. Thanks for coming." And he said, yeah, he goes, I realized that every morning I hear you guys laughing and talking and enjoying, being on the front porch. And he goes, and I kind of felt left out. I kind of felt silly sitting here on the couch with my phone.
Right.
So just do it anyways. Even if nobody else joins you, just be the example because that's how we get people to really. Then I started having people say, wow, you're really glowing. What are you doing that's different? And it wasn't really any other change except for spending time outside, getting cold exposure, getting good sleep, making sure I'm blocking artificial light at night, right?
Right.
These things that sound so easy, low cost, almost free, right? And yet they were making such a big difference. Someone even asked me if I had had plastic surgery on my face. And I was like, ha, that's hilarious.
Right. I've gotten more sun than ever.
Exactly, because you
Right.
just glow.
hmm I have a question. Can we go back? I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify just for our listeners or in the show notes. You said for cold plunge 60 degrees or below for 11 minutes
A week.
a week. Okay. So are those in little 2-minute segments or 3 minutes? Okay.
Yep. Yep. So that's where the studies are, 11 minutes a week. So I think you get the people that are like, you need to stay in for 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
no, you don't need to do that. You can hop in, stay in a minute, stay in 2 minutes, right? Like, and you can also do it multiple times a day. That's the other thing. It's like, I think a lot of people think, I need to get in, I need to sit in for the 3 minutes. Yeah, if your body and your nervous system can handle that, that's awesome. But if not, you can also just kind of
hmm
drip expose it.
And a good place to start for those who aren't ready for the plunge or to take the plunge are these cold face dunks in the morning because
Yes.
ultimately, cold is a circadian marker for us. So we're basically setting our circadian rhythm too with this cold exposure. And so that's a way, along with food, by eating in the morning, that we can kind of set our circadian cycle along. And so you can just get a bowl, put some ice in it in the kitchen, and just do some face dunks in the morning. And that can be a great way for cold exposure, right?
Yeah, and so I run a retreat called Return to Nature, and this year we had Nathan Siles, and he's coming back next year as well. And what was really different was we had a Morosco Forge, we had the full body cold plunge, but Nathan came in and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about face plunging." And he did something at the retreat that I've never seen anyone do. And so he had the little nose plugs for the swimmer plugs and snorkels. And so he did these long exposure face
Ah.
um, with a snorkel. And I just thought, wow, it felt very different than just dunking and trying to hold your breath or, that could get uncomfortable. But you can get those little nose plugs right on Amazon. They're so cheap for like
Mhm.
a dozen of them. And even do it through a snorkel and kind of extend the time that you're spending in that little face plunge to get all those
Interesting.
benefits.
It's like as if we didn't look weird enough already in our blue blockers. Let's add a snorkel. I love it. I love it.
Do you
Uh,
see anyone out with their blue blockers and you're like, yeah, because it's
yeah.
starting to happen a little
It
bit.
is. It is. I mean, and weirdly, it'll kind of start in Hollywood And, people will start there and then everyone will say, oh, they must know what they're doing. But anyway, well, these are all great tips. Oksana, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And you are glowing. Whatever you're doing, you're glowing. It looks
Oh,
great. So, but thank you. I know you've been really important to kind of sharing this knowledge with kind of this ever-growing quantum community of people that are kind of tired of not getting the right answers and looking for new ideas, which are really old ideas, right? These are the ideas
yes.
that have been around for a very, very long time. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you at Return to Nature next spring.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
You too.